Prince Harry and Meghan Markle feel incredibly threatened by Tom Bower and his upcoming book, Betrayal. And how do we know this? Why Harry and Meghan have essentially promoted him by responding to excerpts from his book that have appeared in the Times of London, basically saying that he's deranged, a conspiracy theorist, and a stalker of some sorts, even though all the guy is doing is reporting. He is investigating and reporting. Harry and Meghan, that is called journalism. Apparently, though, the two of them don't know that. However, by actually responding to these excerpts and creating this insanely aggressive response, what they are telling us in the public is that they are worried about the revelations, that Tom Bower is somebody to be taken seriously, because if he is just deranged, stalker, conspiracy theorist, whatever, you ignore him rather than responding. By responding, Harry and Meghan have unwittingly, as ever, promoted his book. They have done.
Tom, ludicrous headlines over the weekend suggesting Prince Harry could somehow worm his way back into the fold. It seems like Sussex PR is in overdrive lately. Are you seeing that too, or do you feel that way?
Well, I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable. But I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain. So I think it's always the same. He wants his cake and eat it.
Isn't that the truth? All right. So Revenge was released in July of 2022. Since then, based on polling and media coverage, how would you describe the trajectory of Harry and Meghan's reputations professionally and personally? It feels like they've taken quite a bit of a dive.
We've got to talk about Tom Bower's new book. Oh, so excited. So I covered, of course, say it with me, Revenge. I've gone through that entire book several times. I love that book. It's one of my favorites, especially in regard to the Harry and Meghan of it all. He really did a great job breaking it down. And now he's announced he's got, hold on, here you go, his new book coming out. It comes out as of the 26th of March. And people have asked, and you better believe I will be all over this book. I've already got my order in. I'm working on getting it as quick as I possibly can. He's releasing it in the UK. So as soon as I can get my hand on it, I will be deep diving into it. Believe me, I'm working behind the scenes to get a copy as quick as I can. Did I think about going to the UK to get a copy? I did think about going. That's how bad I want this book. But yes, I will be covering it. I will be deep diving it. I will be discussing every page of the darn thing, and I can't wait for it.
Tom Bower's new book, the one she desperately tried to kill, is sitting at #1 on Amazon before a single copy has even shipped. This isn't just a PR disaster. This is a full-blown, self-inflicted catastrophe. And the stench of panic coming out of Montecito is impossible to ignore. Last week, through their lawyers, Harry and Meghan sent Tom Bower a cease-and-desist letter, so shrill it could peel paint. They demanded he abandon the book entirely. Not edit it. Not tone it down. Abandon it. Kill it dead. Tom Bower's reaction. He laughed. Then he sent the letter straight to the Daily Mail. And within hours, the book rocketed to #1. Congratulations, Meghan. You just handed your worst enemy the biggest megaphone on earth. But here's the part that should chill every single person still defending her. They didn't threaten to sue for libel. Think about that. The one weapon that would actually shut Bower up, a defamation lawsuit, they refused to use. Why? Because they know what we all know. If they sue, they have to open discovery. They have to hand over phones, emails, WhatsApp chats, staff NDAs, palace memos, everything. And once that happens, the truth doesn't just leak. It floods. Ah yes, the fairy tale. The actress who never Googled her prince. Who didn't know what a walkabout was. Who just wanted a quiet life, and then spent 6 years screaming at staff, briefing against the royal family, and monetizing every tear she could squeeze out on camera. Tom Bower already shredded that fairy tale in 2022 with Revenge. That book was brutal. But this new one, reportedly titled House of Lies, or something equally delicious, is apparently so radioactive that Meghan tried to have it aborted before birth. And still no lawsuit. That tells you everything. Let me read you the best part of their legal threat. They accused Bauer of harassment. Harassment for writing a book. With footnotes. This is the same woman who allegedly made staff cry so regularly that Buckingham Palace had to launch an internal bullying investigation. The same woman whose staff nicknamed her Duchess Difficult. The same woman who, according to multiple sources, screamed at a young female aide in Australia until the girl was shaking. But sure, Tom Bauer typing in his study in London, that's harassment. The hypocrisy is so thick you need a chainsaw to cut through it. And let's talk about the Streisand effect for a moment. Because what Meghan just did is the single dumbest move in modern celebrity crisis management. Barbara Streisand sued a photographer for taking a picture of her cliffside mansion. Before the lawsuit, 6 people had seen the photo. After the lawsuit, 420,000 people in 1 month. Meghan just pulled a Streisand on steroids. She took a book that maybe royal nerds were going to buy and turned it into a global must-read.
So be sure you're tuning in for that. And if you want, go back and refresh yourself on revenge. Now, to kick us off, I have a very important question. How will we be saying this title? Because if you're new here, we said revenge on the first book. The way I'm thinking about this one is like betrayal. Something like that. Something dramatic like betrayal. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. But I'm so excited. It hits March 26th. I'm going to be talking about it. Don't you worry. I'm actually going to be talking about it today because already excerpts are coming out and these two are clapping back and I'm here for it. But I want to dive into something else first in case you missed it. First of all, I want to say hi, I'm Jen. Welcome. Make sure you're subscribed. I really appreciate that. I'm pushing to 200,000. Just making sure you're subscribed, or if you're not already, hitting the subscribe button really does help that. Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who hits the hype button. All right, let's talk. Today, I'm filming this on Sunday. I don't know what day it's going up, but I'm filming this on Sunday, March, 15th. And I want to say happy Mother's Day to my UK geese. Today is Mother's Day in the UK, and some of my favorite people in the world are in the UK. And I want to wish you a very happy Mother's Day. I hope you are surrounded by your goslings and your loved ones, and you're being spoiled and pampered as you deserve. And anyway, I just wanted to say that. But I also wanted to see if you guys saw. Did you see what the Prince and Princess of Wales posted? I think this is very interesting. All right, so the Prince and Princess of Wales posted this. That says, remembering, so this is William, of course, he signed it there. William posted, remembering my mother today and every day.
Orders are reportedly higher than Prince Harry's own memoir Spare, a book, remember, that sold because people wanted to see Harry throw his family under the bus. Now they want to see Meghan finally get held accountable. And she handed it to them on a silver platter. She really thought she could bully Tom Bauer into silence. The man who eviscerated Robert Maxwell. Who destroyed Richard Branson's reputation in print. Who made Mohammed Al-Fayed cry in court. This is the journalistic equivalent of walking into a cage fight with Mike Tyson, wearing a meat dress. And then acting shocked when you get knocked out in 10 seconds. But the real question, the one that keeps me up at night, is what exactly is in this book that terrified them so much. We know Bauer has been interviewing former staff who are now free from NDAs. We know he's got palace insiders who watch the Sussexes up close. We know he's been digging in California too. So let me make an educated guess. This book isn't just about old grievances. It's about what they've been doing since they left. The fake paparazzi shots. The staged private moments. The way they allegedly use friends as human shields. The money. The endless money. And most damning of all, the lies they told to get that money. Because let's be honest. If everything was above board, if their victim narrative was rock solid, they would have sued years ago. Instead, they threaten. They bully. They send legal letters. They brief friendly journalists. They do everything except go to court. That's not the behavior of innocent people. That's the behavior of people who know the truth would destroy them. Now, let's dig deeper into what we actually know about this explosive new book. According to sources close to the publication, Bauer has spent 18 months conducting over 200 interviews. 200. That's not a hatchet job. That's an investigation. Former members of staff from Kensington Palace, people who worked at the Sussexes' California operation, Hollywood insiders who have dealt with their agent-driven chaos, even people from Meghan's pre-royal life who have watched her trajectory with growing horror. And here's what makes this different from the first book.
Yeah, I think professionally they've gone down dramatically, and I predicted it in the book, but even I would not have thought it'd be that accelerated. I think personally, I think they've separated their professional lives, but I think what's really a great problem for them now, as of in the last few weeks, is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem. And I think as of this week, the signal for her great problem is that she turned up at Kevin Costner's party for the emergency workers.
Which she skipped
California.
last year. She skipped that last year. That's a great
She
point.
skipped it last year, and that was very critical because at that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap and give it gratis. And this year, she is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem because he's lost his charity centre Bailey in Africa. He had better up, and all these commercial deals are declining. I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic. And I think Invictus is his only lifeline. And there'll be problems with that too.
I mean, we've seen people leaving Invictus recently. Important, I think that's you mentioned the Disney special. Does the Disney special at all look to you like an influencer pivot? Because that's what I was like, oh my God, oh no. I mean, they're spokespeople.
Back in 2022, many people were still bound by NDAs. Palace protocols were still being observed. There was still hope, naive as it was, that some kind of reconciliation might be possible. That's all gone now. The NDAs have expired for many staff members. The palace has stopped protecting them. And the people who once kept quiet out of loyalty or fear have watched Harry and Meghan spend years trashing everyone around them while playing the victims. They're done staying silent. Bauer reportedly has chapter and verse on the real reason staff kept leaving. Not because they were racist. That convenient lie has been demolished so many times it barely deserves mention anymore. But because working for Meghan was described by multiple sources as a waking nightmare. 5 a.m. emails demanding impossible tasks. Screaming matches over flower arrangements. Staff being berated in front of others, then gaslit when they complained. One former aide reportedly told Bauer that Meghan would smile for the cameras, then turn to staff members seconds later with a face like thunder and unleash a torrent of abuse. Another described her as having two completely different personalities, the warm, compassionate public Meghan, and the cold, calculating private tyrant. But of course, when these stories started leaking back in 2021, what did Meghan do? She cried to Oprah about how she was the one being bullied. She claimed the palace was spreading lies to destroy her. She painted herself as the victim of a coordinated smear campaign. And millions of people believed her. Because she's very, very good at playing the victim. It's arguably her greatest talent. But here's the problem with being a professional victim. Eventually, the evidence piles up so high that even your most devoted defenders start to notice the pattern. The bullying allegations from palace staff. The estrangement from her entire family, except the father she publicly destroyed and the niece she tried to use for publicity. The friends who quietly distanced themselves. The charities that wanted nothing more to do with her. The Hollywood elite who stopped returning calls. Even Oprah, her biggest champion, has barely mentioned her in 2 years. When Oprah ghosts you, you know you've become toxic. And Bauer's new book reportedly contains the receipts for all of it. Detailed accounts of which staff members were driven to tears. Emails proving Meghan personally briefed journalists against palace aides. Evidence of the Sussex squad, that vicious online mob, being encouraged and directed from Montecito. Financial records showing where the charity money actually went. And perhaps most devastating of all, testimony from people in Meghan's life before Harry, painting a picture of someone who has always operated this way. Using people. Discarding them when they're no longer useful. Rewriting history to make herself the hero. This isn't new behavior triggered by joining the royal family. This is who she's always been. The royal family was just the biggest stage she'd ever played on. Now let's talk about Harry for a moment. Because while Meghan is clearly the driving force behind this circus, Harry is complicit in every single move. He signed off on that legal letter to Bauer. He co-signed the victim narrative. He stood beside her while she torched his family. He wrote an entire book, Spare, throwing his brother, his father, even his dead mother under the bus to justify his choices. And now, faced with Bauer's investigation, he's cowering behind lawyers instead of defending his reputation in court. Harry used to be the cheeky Spare, the likable rogue, the prince who served in Afghanistan, started the Invictus Games, and seemed genuinely committed to service. What happened to that man? Meghan happened. And whether you want to call it love, manipulation, or folie à deux, it doesn't matter. The result is the same. Harry has become a shell of his former self. A prop in Meghan's endless PR campaign. A royal title she wheels out whenever she needs credibility. And the saddest part, he seems completely incapable of seeing it. Or maybe
done the exact opposite of what they should do. So guys, we are going to get into all of this today. But if you haven't been to Royal News Network before, my name is Brittany. On this channel, we provide compelling royal commentary. So please hit the subscribe button. I would absolutely love to have you back. And after finishing this book, feel free to head over to Royal Fashion News because I have a video discussing the closing of L.K. Bennett, one of Princess Catherine's favorite clothing brands. And we go over some of her looks. I'm actually wearing a look from L.K. Bennett that Catherine actually wore. So it is a lovely dark green polka dotted dress with a tie in front. I love it. Catherine looked great in hers as well. So if you guys want to check that out, feel free to do so. And never forget as well about Ana Lucia diamonds. I'm wearing my diamond hoop earrings today because I thought that would be a great addition because I feel like I needed to dress this up rather than wearing my usual studs. So if you guys want to check these out, there's a link up above and down below. And if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save 20%, which is awesome. These are lab created diamonds, just the perfect addition to your jewelry box, especially with Easter upcoming in the spring. Best to kind of zhuzh up, let's say, your Easter wardrobe. But guys, let's get into this. And there have been another 2 excerpts released, one about the collapse of Santa Bale, which I do want to go into because there were definitely some really, really interesting and fascinating excerpts from that, especially in regard to the collapse, because Dr. Sophie obviously came out very strongly against Harry and Meghan, and it played very well to social media. But if you actually read through it and read through actually all the articles regarding kind of the collapse, it was definitely a collective problem of a very mismanaged organization with an addition of a very, let's say, not great leadership staff. And Sophie is somewhat included in some of that. So we are going to explore that because there's definitely some interesting tidbits there. And we do have one that just came out today. One about Meghan being quoted as saying, I too get to make mistakes. How Meghan put herself first is the title.
he does see it, and he's simply too proud to admit he made the biggest mistake of his life. Either way, Tom Bower's book reportedly contains devastating material about Harry too. His tantrums during the wedding preparations. His paranoia about the press, which Meghan deliberately stoked and weaponized. His estrangement from lifelong friends who tried to warn him. The drinking. The therapy speak he uses to justify every terrible decision. And most damning, the moments when palace staff saw him realize what he'd gotten himself into and choose denial over escape. Because leaving Meghan now would mean admitting he was wrong. Admitting he torched his family relationships for nothing. Admitting that the entire victimhood narrative was a lie. And Harry's ego, battered as it is, can't handle that. So instead, he doubles down. Sends legal threats to journalists. Issues statements through lawyers. Hides in his Montecito mansion and pretends the world is persecuting him. It's tragic. And it's entirely self-inflicted. Now, let's address the real reason Meghan and Harry are terrified of this book. It's not the old stories. We've heard about the bullying. We've heard about Megxit. We've heard about the Oprah interview lies being systematically debunked. What terrifies them is what Bower has uncovered about their current operation. The money trail. Follow the money and you always find the truth. Harry and Meghan signed deals with Netflix and Spotify worth hundreds of millions. Spotify has already cut them loose after they produced virtually nothing of value. Netflix is reportedly furious that the only content the Sussexes delivered was a whiny docuseries that tanked after the first week. So where did all that money go? Because they're certainly spending it. The Montecito mansion cost $14 million. The security costs are reportedly running $7 million a year. The private jets. The designer wardrobes. The PR teams working overtime to plant puff pieces in friendly outlets. It all costs money. And according to sources Bauer has spoken to, the Sussexes are burning through cash at an unsustainable rate. They're not generating new income. They're not producing content. They're not building a business. They're just spending and spending and spending. And when the money runs out, and it will, what then? Another tearful interview. Another book trashing the royal family. Another lawsuit against a British tabloid. That's not a career. That's a slow-motion car crash. And Bauer's book reportedly lays out the financial reality in brutal detail. But there's something even more damaging in the book. The California social scene has completely frozen them out. Meghan thought she'd return to Los Angeles as a conquering hero. A princess who'd beaten the evil royal family and returned home in triumph. She thought Hollywood would embrace her. She thought A-listers would be queuing up to work with her. Instead, silent. Crickets. The big names, the Clooneys, the Obamas, the Spielbergs, want nothing to do with them. Oprah's moved on. Tyler Perry lets them use his house, but keeps his distance publicly. Even the celebrities who initially supported them have quietly backed away. Because in Hollywood, there's one thing worse than being hated. Being boring. And Harry and Meghan have become deeply, tragically boring. They have one story. We were victims of the terrible royal family. That's it. That's their entire brand. And you can only sell that story so many times before people stop caring. Bauer's book reportedly contains quotes from Hollywood insiders who describe Meghan as desperate, delusional, and impossible to work with. One A-list producer apparently told Bauer that Meghan pitched him a project where she'd play a princess who overcomes adversity. The producer said she wanted to play herself. Again, we passed. Another studio executive described a meeting where Meghan brought a list of demands that would make Mariah Carey blush. Creative control. Final cut.
Thinking of all those who are also remembering someone they love today. Happy Mother's Day, William. I love that. I love that post, and I love this picture. I think that's such a sweet moment and such a thoughtful tribute. I really do. Now, what's interesting to me, everything about this is interesting to me, because usually he'll do a tribute to Catherine. And he might still, maybe he has, and I haven't seen it, but this is the only thing I saw at the time of this recording. And what's interesting to me is that there's definitely, obviously there's been tensions with Harry and Meghan. And I think for the most part, the royal family does a great job of ignoring it. But I feel like they've come to a head. I really do. I feel like they're a boiling point now. And I feel like that, and these are just my speculations, I'm wondering if, it's more than enough for the royal family. And again, they have actual important things to do. So it's not that I'm dare suggesting they waste their time on Harry and Meghan, but it's getting harder to ignore them. And now I find this interesting with this book coming out and Harry and Meghan clapping back in certain ways. And we'll get into that. I can't help but wonder if this is almost intentional, because look at the picture. Look at the way it's worded. If you think about his age here, it would have been before there was a Harry, or I think he looks to be less than 2 here, or 2 or under. So there wouldn't be a Harry yet. And if there was a Harry, he's not featured. So I think that's, again, I'm not trying to stir up controversy. I'm just saying I find that interesting, and I wonder if it's intentional. But regardless, I think it's a wonderful way that he remembered Diana, and I think it's lovely that he posted that. But I do find it interesting. I do. And again, normally I would say they're too busy and important, talking about the actual working royals, to pay any mind to Harry and Meghan. I don't think that they spend their days worried about what Harry and Meghan are doing, but I do think that Harry and Meghan have gotten so awful. I really do, with all this stuff, that it's almost like it's forcing their hand a little bit. So I don't know. I find that interesting. Okay, let's talk.
Approval over every crew member. A producing credit. And a fee that was, quote, laughably disconnected from her actual market value. They never called back. This is why the Netflix and Spotify deals fell apart. Not because of racism. Not because of media conspiracies. But because Meghan and Harry are difficult, entitled, and creatively bankrupt. And everyone in Hollywood knows it. Bauer's book is going to make that official. Now let's talk about what happens next. Because this isn't just about one book. This is about the collapse of a carefully constructed narrative. For 4 years, Meghan and Harry have controlled their story through friendly journalists, glossy PR, and the occasional strategic lawsuit. They've positioned themselves as brave truth-tellers, standing up to institutional racism and media cruelty. They've cultivated an image of being down-to-earth, compassionate, and modern. Tom Bower's book is a wrecking ball to all of that. And their response, that panicked, shrill legal letter, just proved everything Bower is about to say. They're not confident. They're not secure in their truth. They're terrified. And terrified people make mistakes. The biggest mistake. Not suing. If Bower's book contains provable lies, they could destroy him in court. They could win millions in damages. They could discredit him permanently. But they won't. Because discovery would be catastrophic. Every email. Every text message. Every NDA with former staff. Every financial record. Every briefing to friendly journalists they've denied giving. All of it would become public. And that's the one thing they cannot allow. So instead, they'll do what they always do. They'll brief friendly journalists that Bower is a racist. They'll claim he's part of a coordinated attack. They'll play the victim. Again. And this time, fewer people will believe them. Because the pattern is now undeniable. When you've accused your family of racism, your staff of bullying, the British press of persecution, the palace of conspiracy, and now a respected investigative journalist of harassment. At some point, people start wondering if maybe, just maybe, you're the problem. Tom Bower's book will be that tipping point for millions. Not because Bower is perfect, he's not. Not because the royal family is blameless, they're not. But because the sheer volume of evidence, testimony, and documented behavior will be impossible to dismiss. Meghan Markle is about to face the reckoning she's avoided for 4 years. And the tragic irony. She brought it on herself. If she'd ignored the book, it would have sold to royal watchers and critics. It's nothing more. But by trying to kill it, by issuing that legal threat, by showing the world how terrified she is. She turned it into the biggest royal book launch in years. Tom Bower must wake up every morning and thank whatever gods he believes in for Meghan's staggering incompetence. She's the gift that keeps on giving. So here we are. The book is number 1. The world is watching. And Meghan and Harry are trapped. They can't sue because discovery would destroy them. They can't ignore it because the damage is already done. They can't spin it because nobody believes them anymore. Tom Bower's new book hasn't even hit the shelves yet, and already the Duchess of Montecito is in full meltdown mode. Legal threats flying. PR teams working overtime. Friendly journalists suddenly writing identical pieces about how Bower is obsessed and cruel. It's coordinated. It's desperate. And it's failing spectacularly. Because here's what Meghan hasn't grasped yet. The more noise she makes, the more people want to know what she's hiding. And trust me, she's hiding plenty.
And these are so revealing. And Tom Bower did an excellent book here. We have, obviously, Revenge. Now, I read this back in 2022. And with his new book coming out just in 9 days, by the way, I'm going to hope to reread this. And what's crazy is Harry and Meghan are obviously hugely threatened by this book and by Tom Bower as an author. But instead of ignoring him, and again, this is what I want to talk about today, instead of ignoring him and letting this book maybe ride into the sunset and die, they decide to respond. And of course, the response is picked up by all these outlets and discussed by people like me. It's on X, it's everywhere. And so everybody knows now Tom Bower has a new book. So if you wanted to bury his book, you actually did the exact opposite. You actually promoted it, Harry and Meghan. That is what you were doing. Now, some people say when I talk about Meghan Markle and her brand and stuff like that, that is considered promotion too. But there's obviously good comments versus bad comments. And Tom Bower has written, I would argue, a fairly good book here discussing mostly Meghan's rise, you could say, and Harry a little bit. And this betrayal is more about the time period he didn't get to discuss in the book because there's a lot that's happened between 2022 and now 2026. And Harry and Meghan, the honest way to deal with somebody like Tom Bower, if you are Harry and Meghan and a public figure, is to mostly just ignore. You don't respond, you don't comment, you don't engage. Because to engage, actually...
Let's start with the timeline, because timing is everything in this story. Tom Bower announced his new book 3 months ago. Radio silence from Montecito. No response. No comment. Nothing. Then 2 weeks ago, something changed. Suddenly, Meghan's lawyers are sending cease-and-desist letters. Suddenly, her PR team is briefing that Bauer has crossed a line. Suddenly, there are whispers that this book is different from his previous work. What happened? Simple. Meghan got an advance copy. Or more likely, someone who's quoted in the book gave her a heads up about what's coming. And whatever she read made her panic so badly that she abandoned every strategic instinct she has. Because here's the thing about Meghan Markle. She's usually very, very careful. Every move is calculated. Every interview is scripted. Every photograph is staged. She doesn't do spontaneous. She doesn't do uncontrolled. So when she fires off a legal letter that makes her look guilty, terrified, and completely unhinged, that's not strategy. That's panic. Pure, unfiltered, 3M can't sleep panic. And I want to know why. What is in this book that scared her so badly she threw caution to the wind? Let me tell you what I think it is. It's not the bullying allegations. We've known about those for years. Buckingham Palace literally investigated her for making staff cry. That ship has sailed. It's not the Oprah interview lies. Those have been fact-checked and debunked 1,000 times. The Archbishop of Canterbury himself confirmed she lied about the secret wedding. The palace records proved she lied about Archie's title. Her own father's photos proved she lied about him, staging paparazzi shots. Old news. So what's new? I'll tell you what I think Tom Bauer has uncovered. The operation. The machinery behind the Sussex brand. The PR manipulation. The money laundering through charities. The staged photographs sold to agencies. The coordinated attacks on critics. And most damaging of all, the evidence that Meghan has been playing both sides from the very beginning. Let me explain what I mean. From the moment Meghan met Harry, she was positioning herself as the modernizer. The American breath of fresh air. The woman who would drag the monarchy into the 21st century. But behind the scenes, she was documenting everything. Taking notes. Recording conversations. Keeping receipts. Not to protect herself, but to weaponize later. Because Meghan Markle didn't come to Britain to join the royal family. She came to conquer it, and when she couldn't, she came to destroy it. And Tom Bauer reportedly has proof. Former friends who describe Meghan's long game starting years before she met Harry. The networking. The social climbing. The calculated friendship with Marcus Anderson, the Soho House consultant who connected her to the right circles.
Absolutely. I mean, the moment they went there and allowed themselves to be photographed, and I thought, well, how much are they being paid for this? And quite clearly, they're being paid to promote it this week too. It'll work in the sense that I think, it's Disney today and some sort of butter spread tomorrow. I mean, that's the trajectory they're on. But they're going to have to earn some money.
That's true. Did anything make the cutting room floor when it came to revenge simply due to space? I know that publishers love chopping up well-researched books, without any hesitation about you're sitting there going, no, this is so important. But sometimes it's just about, shrinking a book down.
I mean, you've got to remember, it was a pathfinder, the book. And even the publishers couldn't quite believe some of the things which I discovered. And one of the big things at that time was sensitivity reading. There was a great fear that she would play the race card. And so, for example, there were great arguments about whether you could call her strong-willed or not, because she at the time was playing herself as a black woman, and black women, if they're strong-willed, that's seen to be a stereotype. I think that would now not occur. I think there were various things about her sexual life, which I dropped out on the grounds of privacy laws in Britain.
Oh my God, I have got to get you intoxicated, Tom Bauer. I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah. I think I've forgotten them.
Oh no.
But
then apparently they weren't that good.
They were very good.
Oh no.
I mean, the privacy laws are pretty strong here, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life. I'll work them into another book, I think.
Oh my goodness, Tom Bauer. I love that.
This wasn't a fairy tale romance. This was a business plan. And Harry was the product. Now I know what some of you are thinking. That's too cynical. People can fall in love. Of course they can. But answer me this. Why did Meghan's Hollywood career suddenly stall right before she met Harry? Suits was ending. She wasn't getting other roles. Her lifestyle blog was failing. Her celebrity endorsements dried up. She was, by industry standards, agging out at 35 with no major breakthrough on the horizon. Then suddenly she's dating a prince. And suddenly every interview is about how she never Googled him. How she didn't know much about the royal family. How she was just a normal girl who happened to fall for a guy who happened to be sixth in line to the British throne. Please. Meghan Markle had researched Kate Middleton so thoroughly she could probably recite her A-level results. She knew exactly who Harry was. She knew exactly what the opportunity meant. And she went after it with the focus of a heat-seeking missile. Tom Bower's book reportedly contains testimony from people who watched this happen in real time. Friends who remember Meghan obsessing over Diana. Colleagues who recall her talking about the royal family years before meeting Harry. People who saw the calculation behind every smile. This wasn't love at first sight. This was ambition meeting opportunity. And for a while, it worked brilliantly. The wedding was watched by billions. Meghan became the most famous woman on earth overnight. Magazine covers. Fashion icon status. A global platform. She had everything she'd ever wanted. Except control.
Have you seen this? Okay, so a claim came out from the book, and Harry and Meghan are clapping back from it. So I really want to dive into that. So I'm going to read the title, and I want to talk about what's going on. Sussex brand, this is per Daily Mail. Sussex brand claims the Queen accused Meghan of brainwashing Harry as deranged conspiracy. So I do want to talk about that because I believe they said it was a source from Harry and Meghan. When I see that, I always assume it's Meghan. Meghan is the source. That's just my opinion. I just wonder if she's the source because usually it's very pro Meghan, the stuff that the source says. And again, they're standing up for Meghan here. So I wonder who the source is. But I think it's interesting, the words. And in case you don't know, I think it's very intentional that they're using the word deranged. Let me explain. So if you've been in my position or in your position where you're watching the Harry and Meghan content for very long, you'll know that the Sussex squad, I've talked about it, they're the most vile group. They really are awful people. They really go hard after anybody that dares bring up actual criticisms of Harry and Meghan, especially Meghan. They go after hard. Facts be damned. You can point out all day long the hypocrisy and all that. They don't care. They just go after you hard, and it becomes a targeted harassment. It's a harassment group. Many people have spoken about this, but what's interesting to me is they use the word deranger a lot to describe anybody who dares criticize, even if it's a valid criticism, Harry, but especially Meghan. They call us, because I've been called this many times, I get in the comments, deranger.
Because here's what Meghan didn't understand about the royal family. You don't control them. They control you. The palace decides your schedule. They approve your speeches. They dictate your wardrobe choices for official events. They tell you when to smile, where to stand, what to say. For someone like Kate Middleton, who spent 10 years preparing for this role, that's fine. She understood the trade-off. For someone like Meghan, who'd spent her entire life crafting her own image, it was intolerable. So she did what she always does. She pushed back. She demanded exceptions. She insisted on doing things her way. And when the palace said no, she decided they were racist. Not old-fashioned. Not traditional. Not protective of centuries of protocol. Racist. Because playing the race card meant she could position herself as the victim instead of the problem. And for a while that worked too. The Oprah interview. The Netflix series. The sympathetic profiles in American media. Millions of people believed her story. But Tom Bower's book is about to blow that narrative apart. Because he's found the people who know the truth. The staff members who watched Meghan bulldoze protocol and then cry racism when she faced consequences. The palace insiders who saw her brief against Kate while publicly praising her. The friends she discarded who are finally willing to talk. And most devastating of all, the receipts proving she was leaking to the press the entire time she was complaining about press intrusion. Let that sink in. Meghan spent years crying about privacy. About the cruelty of the British tabloids. About how the media was destroying her mental health. And the whole time, she was the one feeding them stories. Through intermediaries, of course. Through friends close to the Duchess. Through carefully coordinated leaks designed to make her look good and everyone else look bad. Bauer reportedly has evidence of this. Emails proving coordination with certain journalists. Phone records showing calls to known royal reporters. Testimony from people who watched her orchestrate entire news cycles while publicly playing the victim. This is why she can't sue. This is why the legal letter was just a threat with no follow-through. Because if this goes to court, all of that evidence becomes public record. And then the entire house of cards collapses. Let's talk about Harry's role in all this. Because while Meghan is clearly the architect, Harry is the enabler. He had to know what she was doing. He had to see the contradictions. His own family was telling him. His friends were warning him. Palace staff were documenting her behavior. But Harry chose to believe Meghan over everyone else. Why? Some say love. Some say manipulation. I think it's simpler than that. Harry wanted to believe he was the hero of his own story. The prince who rescued the damsel in distress from the evil institution. The man who succeeded where his mother failed. The rebel who broke free and built a better life. Meghan gave him that narrative. She positioned herself as Diana too. She encouraged his paranoia about the press. She validated his resentment toward his family. She told him everything he wanted to hear. And in return, all she asked was that he burn every bridge he had. Cut off his brother. Trash his father. Abandon his military patronages. Move to California. Sign away his privacy to Netflix. Write a tell-all book. Small price to pay, right?
Kind of elevates him. How many other authors have written a book or written articles and stuff and they don't respond? Harry and Meghan have never responded to what I say. Although I did notice one time that Meghan actually fixed copy in one of her emails after I pointed it out on a live stream. So maybe they listened to RNN. Maybe. If you were on the live stream and I complained about sprinkle flower sprinkles, it was actually changed to add flower sprinkles later, believe it or not. So very, very interesting. Didn't know you could change emails like that. But when it comes to authors and these sorts of things, if they have nothing to say, if you think everything is ridiculous, nothing is worthy of comment, then you ignore. I mean, Harry and Meghan with Finding Freedom, they ignored it. Like, we obviously know they engaged with it. They actually helped Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand actually write it in some ways, offering bits and pieces of information. But if it's a book that's not worthy of discussion, if everything is ridiculous, then just ignore it. Because generally, now this is not always true, but generally, the wisdom of the crowd will end up dismissing something like that, like Finding Freedom. People who read it goes, this is ridiculous, and kind of tossed it aside. Or like Endgame, that totally flatlined, as did Omid Scobie's first official entry into fiction, although I think most of his books have been fiction, which is Royal Spin. That cratered and flatlined, didn't do anything. And so when you don't respond, when you don't engage, Catherine William have rarely ever engaged in a biography written about them. They haven't said anything about Russell Meyer's book. Now, because he's a member of the Royal Rota, did they probably engage with him in some aspects of that? Yes.
Except now they're sitting in Montecito, burning through money, with no career prospects and no way back. And Tom Bauer's book is about to make everything worse. Because it's not just exposing Meghan. It's exposing Harry's complicity. His tantrums. His demands. His willingness to trash his family for money. Bauer reportedly has sources who describe Harry as lost, angry, and completely under Meghan's control. One former friend allegedly told Bauer that Harry has become unrecognizable. That the funny, self-deprecating prince has been replaced by a bitter, paranoid shell of a man who communicates in therapy speak and victim language. Another source described watching Harry at a social event, constantly checking with Meghan before expressing any opinion. Like a hostage blinking in Morse code. It's sad, it's pathetic, and it's entirely his own fault. Because at any point in the last 4 years, Harry could have stopped this. He could have refused to do the Oprah interview. He could have refused to write Spare. He could have put his foot down and said, "We're not trashing my family anymore." But he didn't. He went along with every bit of it. And now Tom Bauer is going to document exactly how it happened. The manipulation. The isolation. The gradual transformation from prince to puppet. It's going to be brutal. And Harry signed off on that legal threat to Bower, which means he's just as terrified as Meghan. Now let's talk about what happens when this book actually publishes. Meghan's strategy will be predictable. She'll brief friendly journalists that she's hurt but not surprised. She'll position herself as a mother protecting her children from lies. She'll imply, without directly stating, that the attacks are racially motivated. She'll get Omid Scobie or someone similar to write a piece defending her. And she'll wait for it to blow over. Except this time it won't blow over. Because Tom Bower has the receipts. And because Meghan herself has ensured this book will be read by millions. That cease-and-desist letter was the dumbest move she could have made. It signaled guilt. It signaled fear. And it turned a book that might have been read by royal obsessives into a cultural phenomenon. Pre-orders are through the roof. International editions are being fast-tracked. Publishers are ordering additional print runs before publication. This is going to be the biggest royal book since Spare. Except this time the subject doesn't control the narrative. This time someone else is telling the story. And Meghan Markle absolutely cannot stand that. Her entire life has been about controlling her image. Curating her brand. Crafting the perfect story. From her blog to her Instagram to her carefully staged photos, everything has been controlled. And now Tom Bower has ripped that control away. He's talked to people she can't silence. He's found documents she can't destroy. He's built a case she can't refute. All she can do is damage control. And she's terrible at damage control. Because damage control requires humility. It requires admitting mistakes. It requires saying, "I'm sorry." And Meghan Markle has never, in her entire documented life, genuinely apologized for anything. Not to her father. Not to her staff. Not to the royal family. Not to anyone. Because in Meghan's world, she's always the victim. Always the one who was wronged. Always the one who deserves sympathy. And that worldview is about to collide with a very inconvenient truth. Most people don't believe her anymore. The polls are clear. In Britain, she's one of the most unpopular public figures in modern history. In America, her favorability has cratered. Even in Canada and Australia, where she initially had support, opinion has turned. People are tired of the victim act. They're tired of the hypocrisy. They're tired of watching someone with every privilege imaginable complain about how hard her life is. And Tom Bower's book is going to give them permission to say it out loud. Because right now, criticizing Meghan is risky. You might be called racist. You might be attacked by the Sussex squad. You might be labeled as hater. But when
Deep tease right there. That's something that we can look forward to. What did you think? Because in your book, Spare, you talk about how Earl Spencer was concerned about how this marriage might be trouble. And you say, at William's request, Earl Spencer weighed in. He went to Princeharry and said, you should reconsider this, pump the brakes. His advice provoked a bitter reaction, you say. Well, later we find out that Princeharry, since moving to the United States, approached Earl Spencer to ask permission to legally change his family's name. What was your response to that Harry would want to take the Spencer last name? And does it surprise you that Earl Spencer said, I don't advise it?
Well, the answer is, unfortunately, that was one of the revelations, or many revelations, in my forthcoming book, which I had heard about this months and months ago. It was actually when they were at Althorpe filming for the Netflix series that he asked Charles Spencer, because for some reason, Meghan didn't like the surname Mountbatten-Windsor. If you remember, in her first lifestyle series with Meghan with Them Forever, she says to Carling that her surname isn't Markle but Sussex. Mm-hmm. And she was desperate to get it. She said, we never had a proper surname. Of course they did. But so it's now Sussex, although she keeps on being called Meghan Markle. But I think that she did go to, and that she wanted to get rid of Mountbatten-Windsor because she didn't think it was the right name for her children at school. And Spencer said very forthrightly to their face, no, under no circumstances. I think Charles Spencer probably doesn't think the marriage will last forever and just didn't want his name to be associated with Meghan if the event of a divorce. That's my guess. but I did know that he was absolutely emphatic.
A respected investigative journalist publishes a meticulously researched book laying out her pattern of behavior. Suddenly it's not hate. It's just facts. And facts don't care about your victim narrative. So here we are. Publication day is coming. Meghan is panicking. Harry is complicit. And the rest of us are watching the slow-motion collapse of the most delusional celebrity brand in modern history. They could have been beloved. They could have done genuine good. They could have used their platform for something meaningful. Instead, they chose victimhood, bitterness, and endless grievance. They chose to monetize their family trauma. They chose to burn bridges and cry when people didn't applaud. And now they're about to pay the price. Tom Bower's book will be brutal, detailed, and utterly devastating. It will shred what's left of their credibility. It will expose the machinery behind their PR operation. It will show the world exactly who Meghan Markle really is. Not a princess. Not a humanitarian. Not a victim. Just a very ambitious woman who overplayed her hand. And that legal threat she sent. That panicked, shrill, desperate attempt to stop publication. That was the sound of someone who knows the game is up. The curtain is about to be pulled back. The wizard is about to be exposed. And no amount of crying to opera will fix it this time. Welcome to the consequences of your own actions, Meghan. Tom Bower is coming. And he brought receipts. Tom Bower has written another book. And this time Meghan can't stop it, can't spin it, and can't survive it. The only thing she could do was try to kill it before publication. And in doing so, she's guaranteed it becomes the most talked about book of the year. Brilliant move, Meghan. Absolutely brilliant. Let me take you inside what's really happening here, because the surface story doesn't even scratch the surface of how catastrophic this is for the Sussexes. On the face of it, this is simple. Tom Bower wrote a book. Meghan and Harry don't like it. They sent a legal letter. End of story. Except that's not the end at all. That's just the beginning. Because what that legal letter reveals is something far more interesting than anything Bower could have written. It reveals that Meghan Markle has completely lost control of her own narrative. And for someone whose entire existence is built on narrative control, that's not just a problem. That's an existential crisis. Let me explain what I mean by narrative control. Meghan's entire career, from her blogging days to Suits to the royal family to now, has been about crafting a story. The story of Meghan. Relatable but aspirational. Victim but victor. Oppressed but unbroken. It's a carefully constructed character, played across multiple platforms for over a decade. And it worked. She went from a cable TV actress nobody had heard of to the most famous woman on the planet in 18 months. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because someone is very, very good at playing the game. But here's the problem with living inside a constructed narrative. Reality keeps trying to break through. And when it does, you have two choices. Adapt the narrative to accommodate the truth. Or double down on the lie and hope nobody notices. Meghan has always chosen option 2. Every single time. When staff started leaving in droves, she didn't acknowledge management problems. She cried racism. When the relationship with her father imploded, she didn't admit any fault. She painted him as a liar and a traitor. When the opera interview claims were debunked, she didn't retract anything. She just stopped talking about it and moved on to the next grievance. This is textbook narcissistic behavior, by the way. Never apologize. Never admit fault. Always be the victim. Always blame someone else. And for a while it works. Because people want to believe
That she wasn't going to have his name.
Yeah, I mean,
You'll remember another thing about all this as well. And of course, we might come on to this, but in Meghan's mind, she is Diana.
yes.
I mean, Diana Spencer is Meghan Spencer. And that was all part of her imagination that somehow she could inherit the glow of her dead mother-in-law. So I think that was another reason for Charles to say no.
Absolutely. If she were to separate with Prince Harry, the Diana 2.0 could continue to live thanks to the last name. That would get, that it would still give her that royal sparkle that she needs. I do have that. Let's just jump to that. Meghan believed she was as important to the monarchy as Princess Diana, you write in the book, and her visit to Australia in October 2018 only boosted that view. The more Harry drew parallels with his mother, and the more Meghan must have been convinced of her importance to the monarchy. Do you still think she's that delusional? And maybe the answer is watching her at Kevin Costner's 805 Live event in $300,000 worth of jewelry, including Diana's Cartier watch.
Wherever she is, whether it's at Costner or in Colombia or in Nigeria or wherever, she's always, her publicist will reveal that she's wearing one of Diana's pieces of jewelry. I do think that the Australian trip turned their head in a crazy way, although she behaved appallingly during the trip. Yeah. But in Harry's view, this was his mother all over again. What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty and all the values of the Queen and all the tradition and the 1,000 years of history. So people were cheering not just the person.
People want to root for the underdog. People want the fairy tale to be true. But eventually, the weight of contradictions becomes too much. Eventually, people start asking questions. And that's when the narrative falls apart. Tom Bower's first book, Revenge, started that process. It poked holes in the carefully constructed mythology. It gave voice to people who'd been silenced. It presented an alternative version of events that made far more sense than Meghan's victim story. But Meghan survived it. Barely. She issued denials through spokespeople. She had friendly journalists write pieces, dismissing Bower as obsessed and biased. She relied on her core supporters to attack anyone who believed him. And she moved on. But this new book is different. And Meghan knows it. How do I know she knows it? Because of the timing of that legal letter. Think about it. If this book was just more of the same, she'd ignore it. Let it publish. Let it fade away like dozens of other royal books. But she didn't. She sent a legal threat weeks before publication. That tells me she's seen something. Either she got an advance copy, or someone quoted in the book warned her about what's coming. And what she saw scared her so badly that she abandoned her usual strategy of dignified silence. She panicked. And in panicking, she made the worst possible move. Because now everyone wants to know what's in this book that terrified her. Now every journalist in Britain is digging for advance copies. Now every royal watcher is counting down the days to publication. Now the book has shot to #1 on Amazon before a single copy has shipped. Meghan Markle just gave Tom Bower the biggest promotional campaign any author could dream of. And she paid for it with her own credibility. So what is in this book that's so dangerous? Let me tell you what I've heard. And before anyone accuses me of speculation, let me be clear. These are reports from publishing insiders, journalists who have seen early copies, and people connected to Bower's research. This isn't gossip. This is intelligence. First, the book reportedly contains detailed financial analysis of the Sussex Foundation and their various charitable endeavors. Where the money came from. Where it went. What percentage actually reached the causes they claimed to support. Now, I'm not saying there's anything illegal here. But I am saying that when you build your entire brand on compassion and giving back, you'd better make sure the books are spotless. And according to Bower's research, there are some very uncomfortable questions about overhead costs, administrative fees, and exactly how much of those Netflix and Spotify millions actually made it to charity. Second, the book reportedly exposes the machinery behind Meghan's PR operation in forensic detail. The payments to friendly journalists. The coordinated social media campaigns. The use of multiple intermediaries to plant stories while maintaining deniability. This isn't new information to anyone who's been paying attention. But Bower apparently has names, dates, and receipts. He's got the emails. The message chains. The evidence that while Meghan was publicly complaining about media intrusion, she was privately orchestrating it. Third, and this is the nuclear bomb, the book reportedly contains testimony from multiple people in Meghan's life pre-Harry. School friends. College roommates. Suits cast members. People from her first marriage. And the picture they paint is consistent and damning. A pattern of behavior stretching back decades. Using people. Discarding them. Rewriting history. Playing victim. This isn't someone who changed under the pressure of royal life. This is someone who's always been exactly this way. The royal family just gave her the biggest stage she'd ever had. Fourth, the book allegedly details Meghan's relationship with her family in ways that completely contradict her public statements. Remember how she told Oprah she'd been close to her father her whole life until he betrayed her. Bauer reportedly has evidence of years of estrangement before the wedding. Remember how she claimed she tried repeatedly to reach out and repair things. Bauer has testimony from people who say the opposite. That Tom